only finished writing it out this morning. And so I want to share about an invisible spiritual world. One day, we're going to find out that we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're going to find out we're spiritual beings having a human experience. That's right, it is. Yeah, we're going to find that out one day. And it's better to be prepared now. Okay, so, pick up any newspaper or put on your TV or even observe your friends and your family members. And better still, even if you come to a prayer meeting at the church here, you're going to see something. You're going to find out that maybe you think, well, wasn't Satan defeated at the cross? How come we experiencing all this trouble? And some years ago, you might have heard of him, Hal Lindsey. He wrote a book that Satan is alive and well on planet Earth. Well, I've got news for Hal Lindsey. He's not all that well at all. He suffered a major wound when Jesus Christ triumphed with him over the cross. And the final date for his judgment has already been put into God's calendar. When John, the Apostle John, was on the Isle of Patmos, he was called up in the Spirit to heaven, and Jesus revealed the revelation of himself through the book of Revelation, and he was shown the final destiny of Satan himself, and that's in Revelation 20:10. And it says, "And the devil who deceived them was thrown into the lake of burning sulphur, where the beast and the false prophet had been thrown. They will be tormented day and night forever and ever." But now we're sort of living in a time between Satan's disarmament at the cross and his destruction in the lake of fire. Now, in Revelation 12:7, it talks about a war in heaven, where Michael and his angels fought against the devil and his angels, and the devil was finally thrown out of heaven. But this is the warning that comes for us. That's in Revelation 12:12. It says, "Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to the earth and to the sea, because the devil has gone down to you. He is filled with fury, because he knows his time is short." Now, there's this invisible spirit world. There's several examples in the Bible, and one in the Old Testament, a really graphic one, is where the king of Syria suddenly finds out that Elisha is finding out all his war plans, his battle plans against Israel. And it even says in the Bible that Elisha even knew what happened in the king of Syria's bedroom. So the king of Syria makes these plans, and he wants to capture Elisha. So Elisha is down at Dothan. It's called the Wells of Dothan, and those wells are still there today. And he sends his army down at night. And then Elisha's servant, Gehazi, goes out in the morning to get some water for the well for breakfast or washing or something, and he sees the army of Syria all around, with the horses and chariots. And he goes back to Elisha and tells Elisha, and Elisha said these words, "Fear not, for those who are with us are greater than them." But Gehazi is still petrified, and so he prays for Gehazi, and he says, "Lord, open his eyes that he may see." And the Lord opened his eyes, and he saw into this invisible spiritual realm. He saw the chariots of fire and the whole of God's army. And that was in the New Testament. I mean, we don't see this, but it's going on all around us. But in the New Testament, in Acts 25, where Paul is explaining before King Agrippa and Bernice what happened to him on the road to Damascus. And he says, he's telling them the story that he was on the road to Damascus and he's going to arrest the Christians, and he's got this warrant from the Sanhedrin, and all of a sudden there's this bright light, brighter than the noonday sun, and he's not on his horse. And then Jesus says to him, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Well, he saw into that invisible world, because the soldiers and the men with him absolutely saw nothing. They heard something, but they didn't see what Paul was shown. And there's many verses in the Bible that tell us about the devil, our enemy. And Ephesians 2:2 it says, he is the prince of the power of the air. And in 2 Corinthians 4:4, he's the God, small g, of this age. And he's only the God to the unbelievers, not to us. And in 2 Corinthians 11:14 says, he will masquerade as an angel of light. Now at the end of this age, Satan will masquerade as Christ. We're all lying signs and wonders. Myself, I know I've preached messages about this before. I'm sort of wavering a bit in between this, I must admit, because I always believed that the church would go through the tribulation, and we'd be raptured at the end of that time when Jesus Christ came back. But I was keep on reading or studying 1 Corinthians 15, resurrection chapter, and there's one word in verse 23, and it talks about an order. People went to heaven in a different order, and that's just got me a bit worried. But anyway, but if you believe in a pre-tribulation rapture, that's okay. But I've got a little bit of a saying. It's better to prepare for the tribulation and be surprised by the rapture than being prepared for the rapture and being surprised by the tribulation. So this is where I was getting to. Now Jesus has given us a bit of warning, and this warning is the best warning for our lives today, I believe, in the Bible. And it's in Matthew 24:23-27. And Jesus is saying, at that time, if anybody says to you, look, here is the Christ, there he is, don't believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will appear performing great signs and miracles to deceive even the elect, if that was possible. And the Bible talks about the elect. It mentions the elect 13 times in the Bible. One is for the Old Testament saints, one is for the angels, and the other 11 times for the church. So Jesus is saying that even the church can be deceived if it's possible. You hear about people being saying that Jesus Christ all over the world, and I think there's a guy in Kingaroy at the moment currently claiming to be Jesus Christ. Yeah. Anyway, so Jesus goes on and says, see, I've told you ahead of time. So if anybody tells you, there he is out in the desert, do not go out there. Here he is in the inner rooms, don't believe it. For as lightning comes from the east is visible unto the west, so will be the coming of man. We're going to see Jesus coming. All believers guarantee to see him coming. And we haven't got to be worried about going out somewhere to see Jesus or anything like that. At the start of the Second World War, the British government knew exactly what the German military had. They knew how many ships, how many tanks, how many planes, and how many men they had. But it wasn't until they invaded Europe and they started executing people unnecessarily. And then they saw how determined and absolute ruthlessness the Germans were to enslave the nations at all costs. And, we shouldn't minimise the enemy's power or underestimate Satan's ruthless determination to bring about sickness and disease and trying to enslave the world. Paul exhorts the Christians in Ephesus to put on the full armour of God, that you'll be able to stand against these schemes. That word schemes in the Greek is methodeia, and it was originally used to show how a wild animal would methodically stalk its prey. Keep stalking and stalking, and as soon as the prey was either weakened or had its back turned, it would pounce on it. That's where the word schemes come from. And, in Christian books, there's about 50 million Christian books telling us how we should be blessed every hour of every day. And, to my opinion, that's a bit over the top, because we're really in a war. And you wouldn't expect a frontline soldier with bullets flying over his head to think about blessings. All he is concerned to stay alive and well. And that's Satan's plan is to think we're not blessed. When in Genesis 3, when Eve is in the garden, he's telling her, you're not really blessed at all. If you were blessed, you could eat of every tree in the garden. God gave her 99 trees, but only one that she shouldn't eat from, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And but that's how Satan's poised to think that God's holding something back from us, not giving us a full provision. And Satan also wants us to believe that our prayers are not being answered. In Daniel 9, Daniel starts praying about the prophecy of Jeremiah, and he's suddenly realising that Daniel's realising that the 70 years of captivity is coming to an end, and he wants revelation on that, how this is going to end, how they're going to return to Jerusalem. So he's praying. And he hasn't finished the prayer, and the angel shows up with the answer. Gabriel comes to him with the answer, almost instantaneously. And when we pray, we might not get an answer straight away, but our prayers are immediately heard. And then when Daniel was praying in the next chapter, in chapter 10, an angel comes to him, and this is what the angel says to him in Daniel 10. He said, Daniel, you are highly esteemed. Consider carefully the words I'm about to speak to you, and stand up, for I have now been sent to you. And when he said this to me, I stood up trembling. Then he continued, do not be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding, the first day you prayed, and to humble yourself before God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. But the prince of Persia resisted me 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me because I was detained by the king of Persia. And what's he talking about? He's talking about his prayers. His first prayer got straight through to heaven. But his other prayer got delayed by the Prince of Persia. Now, he's talking about a satanic being over Persia. He was in Persia at the time. And that's the same with our lives. There's princes and demonic spirits over every country, every town, even over Russell Island. And if you've ever done any spiritual mapping, you can get aware of these things. I mean, you can go to a city and you can walk on one side of the street and you can feel the oppression. You go on the other side of the street and that oppression is not there. And you've only got to look through history about how there's some countries, you can really read it today. Russia, the Tsars were in Russia and there was some prince over Russia, and the Tsars kept the people well under their feet. And then when communism came, it was the same, when Stalin came, he killed 20 to 40 million of his own people. And then when Brezhnev came, they brought out perestroika, there was that freedom of information, and some freedom. But now Putin there is back again. And the same with Germany. Germany has always been a warlike nation. Of course, the last big three wars, the Prussian War, the First World War, and the Second World War. There's something over that country. I mean, Hitler had his Third Reich. Before that, they had the First Reich and the Second Reich. And now the Fourth Reich is forming now. It's true. It's just, there's over everything, there's a demonic. The people are okay. There's nothing wrong with German people, Japanese people, or Muslim people. It's the spirit over them. So God will answer our prayers, but these spiritual forces try to hinder our prayers getting answered. Now, there's a good defence, a good spiritual defence. Now, I've written down about 5 things here this morning, and to start with, if we start writing out a plan and make it visible, like putting it on our fridge or something, to do some Bible study, to learn something, to even learn a scripture verse. Time goes so quickly. You don't want to be the same spiritually as we were in January, the time we get to December. Just set aside some time to do a little bit of Bible study. Next thing, first thing in the morning, meet with God. Pray first thing in the morning. It's the best thing you can do. And if you're not in the habit to do that, you might buy a devotional book. Get some devotional book and start off reading that and pray. Even if it's only a few minutes, and then just gradually build up and build up. Reading the Bible is another good spiritual defence. It's the sword of the Spirit. We can do it. We can find out more about God. In the Bible, I think it's in Psalm 103. It says that Moses knew God's thoughts, but Israel only saw God's deeds. We want to be lifted up from just seeing what God does to knowing His thoughts to change our life. Another good thing is to keep a book of answered prayers. And when blessings come your way and these prayers are answered, add a little prayer of thanks to that. And, when you're under attack, you can go back on those, what you've written down, and just see the comfort and just see how you got through the last one, and that'll bring you through this attack. Praying in tongues. Now, that's pretty controversial, but Bob and I pray in tongues every day, like many of the people here. That's our biggest spiritual defence, is praying in tongues. It opens the door to the supernatural. Paul said in 1 Corinthians 14:18, I pray in tongues more than you all. Our example should be the first day of the church was the day of Pentecost. And that was 100% that church was speaking in tongues. And, Paul says in 2 Corinthians 11:25, he says he was shipwrecked 3 times and spent a day and a night in the open sea, being in danger from rivers, danger from bandits, in danger from Jews, in danger from Gentiles. Now what I believe kept Paul alive was praying the Spirit on all occasions. It's powerful. Michael was head of the warrior angels, and when we pray in tongues, we're just getting those warrior angels. When we're praying that spiritual language, it releases those warrior angels to come and act on our behalf. Finally, in Ephesians 6:10, it says, finally, be strong in the Lord and the might of His power. Put on the full armour of God, that you can take your stand against the schemes, that word schemes again, For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, against the spiritual forces of evil in heavenly realms. Now, I know Shirley preached a great message on putting on the spiritual armour, but it's so important. I'm just going to echo what you said, Shirley, or say what I do. It says put on Paul gets this idea of this armour from a Roman soldier. And it's different from the soldiers today. I mean, soldiers today, they wear, still wear the belt, and they've got like flak jackets and night vision goggles and helmets, and Paul's not saying all that, but he's saying put on the belt of truth. And when we put on that belt of truth, the truth is we can do nothing, but we can do all things in Jesus Christ. And then he says put on the breastplate of righteousness, and that's to guard our heart. But some that don't operate out of our emotions, we operate out of God's word and being led by the Spirit. Then he says put on the shoes of the gospel of peace. It's so important to walk in peace and bring peace and stability everywhere we go. You might have most of us in our lives have decisions to make. You can go this way or that way in a decision. One might seem very good, and one might have a few risks, but we always take the one that reveals peace in it. And then it says pick up the shield of faith. And our faith is in God's love for us. And that's one thing Satan cannot understand, is love. It's so foreign to him, he can't understand it. So that shield of faith, when we hold it up, and that's that love of God, it deflects all those flaming arrows. Then he says, put on the helmet of salvation. And that, Satan tries to bombard our mind night and day with fear and doubt and moral thoughts. And he says, pick up the sword of the Spirit, and that's the Word of God. And, that's so powerful. It's well able to defend us in times of trouble. Well able to defend us in times of grief. Yeah. And then it says, pray in the Spirit on all occasions. And that's my number one powerful thing, is praying in the Spirit. And finally, in this message, James says in James 4:7, submit to God and resist the devil, and he will flee. And he will flee. And that's so true. But, you've got to look back before verse 7 to see what James is talking about. He's talking to Christians, and he's talking to something inside of us that you can't really throw them out. And he's saying in verses 1 and 2, he's asking this question: what causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from desires that battle within you? You want something, but you don't get it. You kill and covet, but you cannot have what you want. You quarrel and fight, but you do not have it, because you do not ask God. What he's saying is going on inside us, you can't really understand, is this war, this invisible war that's going on. Being attacked by the devil. Once you're a Christian, you're attacked by the devil constantly, And you just got to recognise where that's coming from. Years ago I used to be a bit more involved in church, and we used to head off the church. Something will always happen, But Barbara and I we learned to laugh about it, So that's only an attack of the devil, I remember one time I was going to preach a message at church, and our car, all it would do was about 5 miles an hour. All the way there, I couldn't believe it. And then when we came out of the church, started up, there's nothing wrong with it, But, there's this invisible world, and we've got to recognise it. And as soon as, when we recognise it, we can fight against it and not get upset. Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Michael.